Hi, this is Layla. She's our certified adventure puppy and shop supervisor. One thing she does really well is sleeping on the job. And she demanded that we make her a bed so she can be comfortable when we're at the shop.
Before diving into the build, we listed our must-have features for the bed. First, it needs to be enclosed to minimize dust and debris buildup. Second, it has to cover and house her food and water bowls. Lastly, it needs to be off the ground to separate her bed from the cold concrete floor.
We browsed Pinterest for inspiration and found a few designs that we really liked, so we mixed and matched and made some modifications to fit our criteria. After getting the dimensions based on her current bed, we modeled the design on Fusion 360. This helped us lay out the cut list, which is available for free download on our website. The link is in the description. Layla is big in personality, but small in size, so we were able to design the bed to use only half a sheet of 3/4 inch plywood.
We used our circular saw to break down the sheet of plywood into manageable pieces, then cut them down to their final size on our table saw.
This oval/circular opening that wraps around the corner was the trickiest part of this build, so we'll try our best to break it down.
We wanted to make sure the walls lined up evenly, particularly where the corners met, so we decided to stack the walls and cut them together so they're exactly the same height on the top and the bottom. We attached the wall pieces together using painter's tape and Starbond CA glue so we can easily separate them after cutting.
Then we used a trusty old bucket, which was nearly the perfect size diameter to trace the arc. Rather than using a jigsaw to cut the straight lines, Lewis thought it would be faster to cut these on the table saw first, and then finish cutting the arc with the jigsaw. Unfortunately, he overlooked the geometry of the table saw blade, and he cut a little too far. What a noob, am I right? This was an easy fix though. We just pulled the pieces apart, and then traced the arc a little further down. Then we finished cutting the circular opening out with a jigsaw.
And once all the pieces were cut, it was time to sand.
We forgot to bring our iron from home, and it was nearing the end of the day, so rather than taking time to go pick it up, we tried using a heat gun and a roller to make some progress. First, we taped the edge banding into position. Then, one of us went in with a heat gun while the other used the roller to apply pressure.
It worked well, but definitely took too long. The next day, we got our iron to finish up the rest of the edge banding and trimmed off the excess.
There were a handful of sections with gaps between the edge banding and the wall panel, so we tried reheating and applying pressure, but it still wouldn't stick. So we filled the gaps with wood glue and sanded away. The sanding dust mixed with the glue, making a filler that blended in really well. Once all the edge banding was done, we painted the exterior of the two wall pieces white. In retrospect, we should have held off on applying the paint and finish once everything was assembled, because it made for more work later on when putting all the panels together. While the paint dried, we started assembling the rest of the bed with wood glue and brad nails. We used these inexpensive 90-degree clamps to keep everything square.
We typically wipe up the glue squeeze out with a damp towel, but we know that others wait until the glue dries and then chisel it off. Let us know what your preferred method is down in the comments below.
After a quick sanding, we sprayed an oil-based poly, which again, should have waited until everything was assembled. We set that aside and went on to assembling the two opening panels. We just glued the two pieces together and left them in the clamps until the glue cured. And while we waited for that, we made the shelf that would hold Layla's food and water bowls. To make sure the bowls were evenly spaced, we used our CNC to cut shallow pockets.
The bowls we chose have a rubber grip on the bottom, so we wanted to utilize it by having a solid base for the bowl to sit in, rather than cutting the holes all the way through.
The dog bowl shelf is going to be mounted inside, so we wanted the exposed edge covered with edge banding, like the rest of the bed. We only had a small strip left over that was a few inches too short, and we didn't want to go buy another roll just to finish this piece. So we found a scrap piece of hardwood left over from a set of coasters we had previously made.
After we cut it to size, it matched perfectly with the rest of the bed. Then we glued it into place and used painter's tape to apply pressure while the glue dried.
In the meantime, we realized we couldn't attach the walls with just glue to the rest of the structure like we initially planned, because we had applied oil-based poly all over the walls earlier. So we decided to pivot. We drilled some pocket holes to make sure the structure is solid for Layla. Using a square to make sure everything is lined up correctly, we screwed the two assemblies together. We then added the dog bowl shelf, making sure it was level, and then secured it in place with more pocket holes. Then we attached the roof to the bed by flipping it upside down and driving in screws.
For the legs, we cut 1.5 inch dowels about 1.5 inches tall. We saw a trick on how to mark the center of a circle and we wanted to test it out, so this is what we did. We connected 2 points on the circle to draw what's called a chord. We went with 1 inch so we can easily find the halfway point. We drew 2 1-inch chords opposite each other and then marked the center of each chord. From there, we drew a 90-degree line from the center of each chord, and the intersection of these lines marks the center of the circle. This is a pretty good tip to have in your back pocket if you don't have a center finding tool.
Once we marked the center, we took it over to the drill press to pre-drill and countersink for the screws. Then we set them in place and screwed them in using 1.5 inch Power Pro screws. We added a rechargeable magnetic light inside to brighten up Layla's new space. The magnet is held on by 3M double-sided tape, so it was easy to install. Then we threw in a blanket, set up the food and water bowls, and revealed the new bed to Layla. And she's not a fan. Okay, maybe she'll warm up to it eventually.
If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and comment down below how you think Layla's new bed turned out.
Thanks for watching.